I have another spooky story for you guys. The person who submitted this story to me and I had more of a back and forth conversation instead of her just sending the full story to me. So I'm going to summarize the story instead. Before we jump into the story, can we just take a minute and admire this lip gloss really quick? This is the shiniest one that I have found so far. It's the Anastasia Beverly Hills Gloss in the shade Amber Sparkle. I love a good sparkly lip gloss, and this one is really doing it for me right now. Okay, let's get back to the story. The person who submitted this to me, let's just call her Emily. All other names in the story have been changed as well. So Emily's story comes from a time that she was babysitting her little cousins. She used to do this every summer. The house was old and creaky. She said it was really strange. It had a weird, unpleasant smell that she couldn't quite describe. The house had actually been in her family for generations. Her great grandparents had the house built back in the 1920s. It was one of those places where you kind of don't have neighbors around. So one summer, Emily goes out like she normally does to spend time with her aunt and uncle. She also has two little cousins. We'll call them Alex and Jonah. At the time, they were 6 and 9 years old. So the first strange thing that happened was one night when her aunt and uncle were out having dinner or hanging out with friends or something. And so it was just Emily and her two little cousins home alone. Emily was in the kitchen, basically getting a snack together for the kids. And then all of a sudden she heard the youngest one scream, "Don't." And then there was a loud crash. And so Emily comes in, she's looking around trying to figure out what happened. She sees a vase, a very expensive one that's broken down on the floor. So of course, Emily asked her little cousins, why did you all do that? Stop playing. Well, the little cousins claim, and they were very adamant about this, that they didn't do anything. And so she's like, well, okay, how did it end up on the floor? And they said, she doesn't like when we play on her chair. So Emily's like, what are you talking about? Who is she? The youngest one says the lady who lives in the house doesn't like when we play with her chair. And so Emily's thinking okay, that's creepy, but this is some sort of imaginary friend or something. The kids were obviously playing and they knocked it down. So Emily gets everything cleaned up. She puts the kids to bed. And while she's trying to put the kids in bed, the youngest one, whose name we'll just call Jonah, he keeps talking about this lady. He keeps saying things like she's upset, or every time Emily does something, he tells her to stop it because the lady doesn't like that. And again, Emily's confused, what are you even talking about? Who is this lady? The kid just keeps repeating the same thing. He's not really answering her questions. It's almost like he's being told these things and then he's relaying that information in real time. One thing that he mentioned, the lady doesn't like the hallway light on. He keeps saying, no, anything but the hallway. She really doesn't like that. She's going to get angry. So at this point, Emily's getting frustrated and she says again, who is she? And Jonah looks her dead in the eyes and says, this is her house. She lives here. So whatever she says goes. Over the next few days after that, Emily starts noticing really strange things happening. She's noticing lights turning off on their own. She's noticing toys going missing. She's noticing that she put something down on the counter and she leaves the room and comes back and it's gone. It's not there anymore. And this is all happening while the kids are either asleep or they're not even home. And she has no explanation for why this is happening. And it's happening right after Jonah started talking about the lady. So one night she's just sitting on the couch in the living room. The parents are out again. And so it's just Emily and the two boys. And now the two boys are already asleep upstairs. And so Emily's just downstairs reading. And all of a sudden she sees the hallway light turn on. And so she thought it was one of the boys, that they'd woken up and they were coming back downstairs. So she goes over to check. She looks throughout the hallway. There's no one there. She goes to the boys' room to see if they're awake, and they were sound asleep. But what she did notice, every single door is wide open, and they were not open before. The attic door, which there would be no reason for that to be open, is now open, and it was not open before. So now she's going up and down the hallway, looking inside every single bedroom, closing the doors. She closes the attic door. She's trying to figure out what happened. She thinks maybe the boys did wake up and just opened everything as a prank and then went back to sleep. But she still feels like something's just not quite right. So she checks on the boys again. They're okay. She goes back downstairs to sit and wait for the parents to come home again. So even though Emily's a bit skeptical about this lady that Jonah keeps talking about, she still feels a bit weary. She's not sure what's going on, and so she decides that she's going to pull out the cross necklace that her grandmother had given her years ago. And she decides she's just going to start wearing it just to be safe. Now, this is when Emily said things actually started to escalate. So now the next night, Emily is again babysitting the kids. Parents are gone. I know it seems like they're gone all the time, right? But they're gone again. And Emily's downstairs folding laundry. Boys are upstairs sleeping. And then she hears a loud slam, like a door slammed. So she stops folding laundry. She starts going back upstairs to see what's going on. And when she gets up there, she hears the boys. They're crying very loudly and they're visibly shaken when she gets to them. And she asks them what happened. Jonah, the youngest one, is just crying uncontrollably. The older one, who we're calling Alex, points outside of the door, like right out into the hallway, and says, she's angry. And again, every single door in the hallway was wide open, including the attic. So at this point, Emily's done. This is too freaky, too scary. So she grabs the boys, she goes downstairs, and then she just sits with them and calls the parents, tells them they need to come home early. There's weird stuff going on. Parents come home, and when they come in, Emily starts telling them what's been going on. While she's telling them this, they start to hear a banging sound coming from upstairs. And the banging starts to progressively get more aggressive as Emily keeps telling the stories. So now Emily's aunt tells Emily that she's well aware of these occurrences and she knows exactly why they're happening. So now remember I said that this house has been in their family since the 1920s. This is passed down from Emily's great-grandparents. Well, apparently this stuff is happening because of the great-grandparents, but it's not them. The great-grandfather was a philanderer, and apparently great-grandma came home one day and caught him with some woman. She snapped, and her snapping resulted in that woman no longer being alive. Out of just sheer panic trying to clean up, what went on, they buried this no longer living woman under the crawl space of the house, and she's been there ever since. Now, the way that the aunt knows about this is great grandma confessed all of this to her daughter on her deathbed. So great grandfather had already passed away. He never said a word. He took this to the grave. But great grandma, I guess she just needed to alleviate her conscience. She also told her daughter that the woman would show herself to great grandma on a regular basis, and she was a very angry spirit. No one in the family knows why no one ever came looking for this woman, but according to the story that the great grandma told her daughter, there was never anything in the paper about a missing woman. There was never any family that came around. Great grandpa just met her at the market one day. Apparently that's where he used to pick up women. He didn't even know her last name. The story just kind of ended there as far as who this woman was. What's interesting about this is that the aunt who lives in the house currently, she told Emily that the spirit has been mostly harmless so far. Like they would maybe, hear some sounds here and there, but there's never been an incident. She's never opened up all the doors and made all this racket. And the aunt said that she thinks that Emily actually set her off because the aunt is actually adopted. And so obviously, her husband is not blood related to the family either, and neither are the kids. That's not the case for Emily. Her mom is not adopted, so she's a blood relative. Emily and her aunt think that Emily, being a blood relative, stepping into that home for the first time in so many years, is what set the spirit off. And now that Emily has chosen to never go back, her aunt and uncle have said that they've never had an experience like that since. So it sounds like as long as no blood relatives go into that home, the spirit's okay, just living there forever. Leave your thoughts down in the comments, and don't forget to like and follow for more spooky stories.